atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a common rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Broadcasting across the globe from two guys' rooms, this is Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me, as always, my lovely co-host and editor.
Hello, I am Rex.
And Rex, we have officially made it. We are at the end of another themed month.
No way.
In fact, this is our last themed month of the year.
Such a shame that most of the episodes are coming out late. Oopsie.
I wonder who we throw that on.
Hey, don't put all that on yourself, man.
Oh, I see how we're doing. I see what you're doing now. I see right through your lies. Girl, hide your lies.
You shouldn't be so hard on yourself, man.
I am far from hard on myself. I am living life right now. But before we talk about myself, Rex, how have you been? We have legitimately hardly spoken in the last week.
See, this is the first time where you say we actually haven't spoken, and I think we legitimately just have not spoken this,
we
two
had
weeks
a text.
Since last recording?
No, it was a week ago. We recorded last week. It's been a week.
Oh, okay. Now things that were confusing me earlier are making sense. I was very confused earlier today, thinking back when we recorded the last episode. I thought it was 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, how was it 2 weeks ago? But it says I watched the movie 2 weeks ago originally. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, oh, you've made things click now.
Yeah, no, it was last week. It was last week we covered Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Since then, we've texted briefly, and then you didn't respond to me, and then I sent you a message tonight saying, yeah, you know how you asked me to be ready early? That's not going to happen. And now we're here.
Tomorrow's going to be interesting.
Oh, trust me. That's my every Saturday.
What is it? Isn't it, boys' night or something for you?
Well, no. So the whole thing because of our recording schedule, I have to be up at 1. I don't go to bed till 11 a.m., maybe 10 if we're lucky and it's a good day, 10. And so I get home and I sleep for 2 to 3 hours, and then I have to get up, and then I work for 10, and then I have boys' night out, and then depending on circumstances, I might go to a friend's house and play games and then go to bed and sleep for 4 hours and then get up and go to work again for 10 hours. I have my weekends are awful, and this is kind of giving away next year a little bit, but next year is going to be a lot kinder to me in terms of this whole recording thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am all for it.
Likewise.
But as I said, Rex, how have you been? What is going on?
Not terribly much until tomorrow when the short film that I'm gaffer on finally starts shooting.
So you're a gaffer on it?
Yes.
Interesting, because I don't think we have talked. Have we really talked about that?
A little. I think I brought it up last episode or the week before that, one or the other. Memory. What's a memory?
See, I feel like you've established you're working on a short film, but you didn't establish that you were a gaffer, and we hadn't talked about.
Well, I think I said I was working on the lighting.
Oh, so, yes.
But yeah, no, it'll be interesting. I hear that one of the lead actors is sick, so that's fun. The location is very difficult for me to get to. So I'm going to have fun catching probably an Uber, frankly, in the morning.
All right.
Yeah. Otherwise, I won't be able to get there till like an hour or two late.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also are officially a semester out of school, right?
I did just finish a semester, yes.
So this is, we're still in your first year, right?
I finished my first year. It's done.
Oh, so you're officially on to your second of 4 years, correct?
3.
Oh, so you're already
A third of the way done. Yeah.
wow.
I'm just that good.
How's that feel?
Pretty good. It's strange to think it's already a third over, but I'm not really complaining about that.
It's really weird for me. It's really weird to think that for me.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird doing like a 1 year course like a few years ago and that being over so quickly. Sad when that was over.
See, for me, like, time is starting to get really wonky. Like,
oh yeah.
you and I both pre-recording November flown by. Absolutely flown by.
Bro, I thought we were like not even halfway through November. What do you mean we're recording this near the end of November? Gigan episode isn't even out. I love life. I love life.
See, I don't know why, but the whole mid part of November has just like disappeared.
Bro, literally, where did it go?
It's weird, like the first week was pretty slow. Now, moving by really fast. The thing
is, the whole of November is just kind of blending together for me at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of there too. I've been so busy, like so much stuff has been going on. Like you and I both like have been like running around like crazy, different things going on. But you and I have been very busy. And it's been kind of a roller coaster.
Yeah. It's been interesting. It's certainly been interesting. But how about yourself? Otherwise, how have you been?
Well, it's been a roller coaster. Well, good news is I have basically finished Sharkdemic.
Congrats.
So I actually, as of today, I got the commentary finished and it's sent off and it's included. There is still one bonus feature that I have not completed, but I don't think I'm going to be able to complete it. And so that's going to be one thing that gets cut, but it's still a packed release. Like we worked so hard on this film and I'm kind of tired. Like, and this is something kind of going to what I just said, how like November's been a crazy month for you and I really can't wait for next month because next month, you and I, our schedule is going to make it so we don't do a whole lot of recording. We record one day in December and that's it.
Hallelujah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I love doing the podcast. I love the research. I love watching, like, this is really where I get to watch a movie because I'm so busy I don't watch movies. But I really, really, really need a break. Like, yeah. And I think I speak for both of us. It's just, we have been running around. I mean, we've been juggling so much that it's like, okay, break time needs to come up. And after we record in December, we're not going to record again for a legitimate 4 weeks.
Yeah. It's weird because like, even though I'm like done with like my first year, it doesn't really feel like I'm in a break, you know? Mm-hmm. It feels like I'm still just as busy as I was. Like I don't, even though there's a whole like a load that's been lifted off because I don't need to do it anymore. It's like I still feel just as busy.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's the obnoxious part for like me, you know, because I'm constantly like talking. I was talking with a friend actually just earlier tonight. We were talking about like just how much I work and whatnot. And I was telling her, I was like, you know, next year we're already like, I'm taking a bit of a step back a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because and I was telling a friend earlier today as well, I work nonstop. I don't get a day off. You know, all of my bosses get 2 days off a week. I do not. And I'm about to a point in my life where it's like, I need at least 1 day off. I need 1 day so I can devote that to being with people I want to be with. It's getting really difficult for me to juggle just everything I'm doing. Now, I'm not saying that, like, I mean, I'm still going to work with SRS and whatnot. Like, I'm going to do that. But I'm also going to have 1 day where I'm like, I'm not working. Because I need to prioritize, you know, just living. Because I don't do that.
Yeah, no, you definitely need that more than anyone. like I have nowhere near as much on my plate as you, and I still like everyone needs that. Everyone needs that.
Especially like, I don't think it would be as obnoxious. And this is going to primarily be aimed at you, no offense. But the hours that I work are like crazy. Because I do genuinely only work like I there isn't a time where I'm not working. Like my hours of operation are basically 8 a.m. to 5 a.m., right? Like I work any time in that time frame. If we're going to really be honest, like I will work 24 hours. I've done that. I have literally worked on a 24-hour clock. I've went from podcasting to being at work to working on SRS to going back to work to finishing SRS and then going to bed.
Crazy person.
In a 30-hour time slot. Like I've done that.
Crazy person.
And I'm tired. Like I need to stop that. You know, I need to slow down. I do.
100%.
I won't get into too much details, but I have had a couple of minor health scares recently that have kind of made me a little weary because they're in a spot where if it is related to the organ that is right there, that's enough to put me out of commission, period. And I've talked about those problems before, and they've been kind of increasing recently, so much so that I have a friend.
That energy drink you're drinking probably ain't helping either.
Okay, but I don't drink that much caffeine. The amount of caffeine I drink is on average a little less than the normal human being. Like a normal pot of coffee is like 1,000 milligrams of caffeine. I drink maybe 300 milligrams a day. Maybe.
I mean, bear in mind, the daily limit is like what? Is supposed to be like what? 400 at most?
Something like that. And see, most days I don't even drink that much. There's some days I don't drink any caffeine. And I've lost 32 pounds. So like the weight thing is also like now I'm probably classified as slightly overweight, not close to the obese level. I'm now slightly overweight according to the BMI metrics. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm still losing weight. I still need to lose about 7 pounds. I'll be a little overweight, but I'll be a healthy overweight. I when I do eat, I eat healthier stuff. I am reducing my caffeine intake. At that point, the only thing left that I haven't accomplished is sleeping more, right? So these problems I'm having, at the end of the day, it's concerning when most of the things that it could be, I've been resolving. I do believe it, and I believe at the end of the day it'll be chopped up to stress and anxiety and high blood pressure, because I think I'm developing all of those. And so that's something that I know I need to fix that. I don't know how to, but that's something that I know I need to fix. But it sounds like my friend is going to force me to go to the doctor. And if that means she's going to tell me we're going to do something and she takes me to the doctor instead, that's 100% what that's going to be. I'm not looking forward to that.
That's a great idea. I think you should be looking forward to that, actually.
I'm not. I go by Schrodinger's cat theory. As long as you don't open the box, the cat is both dead and alive at the same time. As long as I don't get checked up, I am both okay and not okay at the same time.
You could have a tumor in your heart. What'd you say to that?
I could. I would say, according to Schrodinger's cat theory, I do and don't at the same time. Okay, but
get checked.
Here's the thing. Let's say I did go to the doctor tomorrow and got it checked up, and they found a tumor in my heart. Do you know just how devastating that actually would be?
Yeah, but it's kind of a necessary evil, that devastation, to save us from worse devastation.
But okay, here's the thing though. But if I have a tumor in my heart, there's no way I could get that fixed. There's no way. There's no way I could afford a surgery on my heart for a tumor. So all that's doing is revealing to me that I have a limited time left on this earth. And at that point, what is the point? You know, what is there left really to do? I have a point.
See, you're not wrong. But, I mean, it just depends on how you react to that information, really.
Knowing me, I would feel devastated, defeated, and destroyed and become depressed. Because really, there's one thing on my, I want to do list that I would be upset on not doing, and that's going to Japan.
Well, but, you know, if you find out, that gives you time that it'll maybe, I don't know how I'm speaking out my art, but you might have some knowledge of, I've got to do this soon. It's now or never.
There's no way. If I have a tumor in my heart and it's about to kill me, I probably have 3 months, and there's no way in 3 months I will be able to go to Japan.
Yeah, but what if it's a year or two? Yeah, what if it's a year or two, you know?
Then I guess I better start selling all my stuff. Watch those eBay listings, guys. Everything's going up for sale. Oh my god. But one thing that
the biggest sale of Godzilla 1998 copies, Jesus.
Oh my god. Speaking of which, Godzilla -1 came out on Blu-ray, DVD, and 4K. I got my Blu-ray, DVD, 4K, and Steelbook all in.
Nice. They don't come out here till next month.
And it's got all the bonus features from the Japan Home Video Collector's Edition, and it's subtitled.
Yeah, I'm getting the Steelbook. Our Steelbook's actually a bit different to yours. We got a better cover.
I disagree. Oh wait, no, it's the main cover art.
Yeah,
Ours comes with the cool. Ours comes with the cool poster from the Japan Film Society screening. I love that poster.
Oh, I thought the Steelbook was like the main poster in America.
It is, but it comes with a mini poster of that.
Oh, I don't know if ours comes with the poster, but like that poster is the Steelbook cover.
I love that cover art.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Like that is like the best poster for the film.
Yeah. Still kind of sucks to have to double dip on the film though for those bonuses.
I mean, I've quadrupled. Wait, hold on. I have Blu-ray, DVD,
you're
4K.
A very particular individual.
I have 5 copies of Godzilla -1.
Yeah, but you're a very particular individual. You have like 14, 17, 28 copies in 98. Probably 30 of 2014.
I do think I actually have 30 copies of 2014.
Yeah, exactly. So you're a little bit of a special case. You don't represent the average consumer or average fan.
This is true.
So shut up.
Speaking on the whole, like Godzilla, kind of death and whatnot. So a cool thing about dying when you're a creator is the fact that your stuff does outlive you. And I can't talk a lot about it, but I will say I got to write for another published book.
Oh, nice.
I can't talk about it. It's still under wraps. It might be announced by the time this is out. I don't know. I know it's supposed to be announced very, very soon. But I got to write for a book that's coming out that I'm thrilled and really honored to have been a part of. It was one of those things where, okay, I'm going to say this. It's going to sound really mean when it comes out because everybody's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm going to say right now that the person who's writing the book, the main person who's writing the book, did not plan to have me work on it. But due to scheduling, it just worked out. I don't think I'm worthy enough to be the one doing this for this book, but he swears up and down I'm worthy and I have the qualifications to. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I was kind of like the last choice because there's a lot of cooler people who could have worked on this instead of me. But I'm very honored to have been the one to work on it. Especially since this is a book that, spoiler alert, I've known about for months. And I think this is the first time I've actually talked about it. But I'm also being very, very vague. But yeah, no, I'm excited. It's my second published work. My first published work was in Giant Bug Cinema, a Monster Kids Guide from Bear Manor Media, which I talk about at the end of every episode. That actually got me a Rondo nomination. I don't know if this book will. It might. That would be pretty cool. I'd love to have a 2-time Rondo nominated writer credit to my name. We'll see. But that was really exciting. I enjoyed that.
Sure it was.
On a bit more sour of a note, I got pulled over. I got a ticket.
Nice.
Yeah, I got 2 tickets in the span of about a week. And spoiler alert, it's not for speeding. I was not speeding.
Wait, oh my.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you get a ticket for?
I'm going to keep that to myself.
What other crimes are you committing?
I don't want to talk about it.
Look, if you're committing tax evasion, that's fine. We all do.
They're not going to write you a ticket. They're going to take you to federal prison.
Oh, well, can't always win.
And my days of tax evasion are far behind me, just so you know. But no, outside of that, I mean, for me, it's been mostly working. I've worked a little bit more than I usually do, about like 5 to 10 hours more than I normally do because we are in holiday season. It's our highest point. Outside of that, I've been hanging out with a friend. Just been hanging out, hanging around. Nothing too crazy. Just shopping and getting eating for once. I've been eating and
No
shopping. Mm-hmm.
I don't believe you eat. I thought you just I don't know, maybe you just had a cup of
Actually,
what is it called?
Before you make this joke, I kid you not, most days what I do is I drink 1 or 2 protein shakes, and that's all I have. I consume about 600 calories, and that's all I get.
That's
effective. I lost 32 pounds.
Healthy. It's not...
I never said that what I was doing was the right way. I just said it worked.
Radio. You do you, I suppose.
Hey, I'm fine. I was obese. Now I'm just a little overweight. I had the pounds to lose.
Yeah.
I genuinely feel better. When I see myself in the mirror, I feel better about I am about 5 pounds away from the weight I was in middle school. I'm thrilled. I'm now freshman year of high school weight. And I'm 3 inches taller. So I wear it even better. So it's stuff like that, that just makes me feel better about myself, you know? And once I lose this last 5 to 6, let's see, I think I need to lose 7 pounds. I think it's 7 or 8 pounds. Once I lose that, the ironic thing is I'm going to gain it all back, because then after all the cutting, that's when I'm going to build up mass. I'm going to bulk up through weightlifting, and then I'm going to be feeling great and hopefully looking great. We'll see. I'll have to ask a friend what they think. That is what I have been doing for the last week.
Mm.
So there are a couple of news pieces if you want to talk about those.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to give you one, and then I'm going to see if you have anything, and then I'm going to close this out with another. So the Ultraman Arc movie got announced. Ultraman Arc, the movie, The Clash of Light and Evil. The trailer came out.
Oh,
I haven't watched.
Right.
I haven't watched.
I also
Arc.
haven't seen the trailer or the show, but from what I'm told, it looks good.
See, everybody's talked very highly of Arc. Also, I don't think I don't have this written down. We're going to loop this in with this one. Ultraman Omega is also announced. That's the next series.
Right. Well, it hasn't been officially announced, I don't think, but the trademark got confirmed.
Gotcha. So, I mean, that's all fine and dandy. You know, we know, I mean, as you see on KaijuConversation.com, we have confirmation of Ultraman series all the way through 2028. And you can almost guarantee that all of those will have a theatrical movie. So,
I mean, hey, you never know. They're not doing a Winter Kamen Rider movie this year.
Yeah, but it's Subaraya, and they've seemingly found a formula that they want to stick to.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting. You know, we've got Ultraman Omega coming, Ultraman Arcs movies coming, and so yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Well,
I don't really have any.
Too.
Yeah, Mill Creek, they're doing Ultraman Z. That's coming out in January. They just released Blazar. Did they release Taiga? I don't think so.
That came out before Blazer. I thought it was announced first.
Did it?
I think so.
Oh, yes, it did. I own it. Yeah, so they've released Taiga. Blazar's coming out here pretty soon. They announced Z. They also announced the Regulos 2 miniseries and the Ultra Fight Galaxy trilogy of miniseries.
Yeah.
So with that, I think they have caught up outside of Ultra Shin Fight, Ultra Sevenger Fight, Blazar, the Blazar movie, Trigger, the Trigger movie, and Decker and the Decker movie, which all of that stuff's definitely going to be released. I'm really hoping they do Powered and Great, along with, I think there's 2 or 3 other things that they can do. I'm also hoping for some non-Ultraman Subaraya stuff.
Yeah,
Give
that'd
me
be
the
really
Dinosaur
nice.
trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I would love that trilogy to come out.
Yeah.
And fight Mighty Jack and Mighty Jack.
Yeah, just all of them. All of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of movies, what just got announced today, the announcement technically kind of wasn't supposed to come out. It was supposed to be today, but then got delayed. But then one source, I think, accidentally released it like a few hours ago. Garo. New Garo movie.
Oh, really? Is it going to be a spinoff of the show that just came out?
No. What it is so because next year is the 20th anniversary of Garo, and I'd been wondering for a couple weeks, hey, you guys have been announcing some new figures for Garo. What's this? Are we going to get something new? And sure enough, we're getting a movie called Garo Tiger. Tiger being the name of a character from the original series, the father of Garo's protagonist, Koga.
Okay.
Meaning that we're going back to the original continuity in a prequel.
Oh, interesting.
And the best part of it, written, directed, Keita Amamiya.
Awesome. I love the fact that he's coming back finally.
Yeah. R.I.P. Hiroyuki Watanabe, though. He was the actor who plays Tiger, and he passed away a couple years ago.
Oh.
Yeah. He was in GMK, too, and some Ultraman.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's
R.I.P.,
exciting.
But I'm very excited, yeah.
I also, speaking of new movies coming out, Troll 2 from Netflix is supposedly coming out next year.
Haven't even seen the first one.
Likewise. But I, just throwing that out there. There are two other pieces of news I do want to cover. Ultraman Rising is officially in the short list for Oscar consideration under Best Animated Feature. I don't think it might make it to the actual nominations, but it's not going to win.
No, it's not winning. It's not. Frankly, that vote is like, honest, half the time it's either Ghibli or it's like popularity contest. Ultraman Rising ain't winning. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I really don't see it working out for Ultraman Rising.
And it's like, just on a personal note, it's not even like my preferred option to win for Best Animated Feature. Come on, Look Back. Look Back was so good. That's on the short list. Give it the win. It's a beautiful movie. Beautiful film.
Right. Like there's like the Lord of the Rings movies on there. Moana 2's on there. Kung Fu Panda 4, Inside Out 2.
It's like Inside Out 2 has a disgustingly real chance of winning.
Right. The Wallace and Gromit movie, Transformers 1's on there. It's pretty cool.
R.I.P. Hasbro brands. Did you see that?
I don't think so. What happened?
Oh, basically Hasbro is no longer actually going to provide funding for any of the movies based on their stuff.
Oh, so Power Rangers is dead.
Yes, and Transformers is probably cooked as well.
Huh. Well, Power Rangers we knew was already, like, Boom is no longer doing comics. Hasbro has sublicensed the toys to Playmates. Nickelodeon and Netflix are both not producing content, and Lionsgate's not doing movies. Oh, that's sad. But do you have anything really else to say on the Ultraman Rising thing? I don't really. I just wanted to bring it up. So, do you have any other news? I feel like that's all the like major stuff that we would even remotely talk about.
The Shin Kamen Rider Blu-ray came out.
Did we get word on what the trailer was?
Oh, basically it's like a next episode. So like, you know how did you see the footage of like the recreation of like an ending from Kamen Rider 71?
Where they were on the bridge and they were like doing the jumps and whatnot?
Yeah, and there's a little bit at the end of it that's like the Kaijin from
Yes.
Shin Kamen Rider Revive? Yeah, so the whole thing with it's in the Mars World preview thing. It's like a next episode preview for what's like a tribute to episode 13 of Kamen Rider, like the last episode with Hongo, where it's like all the kaijin that had shown up until that point get revived pretty much.
Gotcha.
And yeah, they recreate like some shots with like Taki and Hayato. And it's cool because they got Takumi Sato back for like 2 shots.
I would love for them to do Shin Kamen Rider too.
Yeah, same. Need.
And like, I think it's so weird that like out of all the Shin movies, that's the one where I'm like, I want a sequel. I want to see more. I want to see this happen. I like this. I want more. It's so weird. Like, I feel like out of all of them, that's the one I would be least invested in. But I am so invested in Shin Kamen Rider 2 happening.
Yeah. No, 100%. I need a sequel.
Like, I could take or leave Shin Ultraman 2. I don't want Shin Godzilla 2. Shin Kamen Rider 2, however, that's where it's at.
Yeah. And did you see that there's also like over an hour of like deleted scenes?
Yes.
Yeah. And so apparently it's edited that all the deleted scenes are basically into like their own movie format pretty much.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I really want to see that. And like some of them, it's like alternate versions of some of the fight scenes too. So like the final fight, there's an alternate version. And obviously there's the practical Shocker Rider fights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to see it so bad.
Well, with that being said, I think we can go ahead and transition here into the actual main topic of our episode. As I mentioned previously, we are at the end of another themed month. This month, of course, in November, Godzilla month, no surprise. So with that being said, I guess we are going to be covering a Godzilla movie today. And I think we should cover the last film that we haven't covered on the show as of recently for Godzilla. And that would have to be Godzilla 2014.
Huh?
Because we've covered GXK. Michael and I covered GVK. And then way back when we covered Godzilla King of the Monsters. So 2014 is the only one we're missing, right?
Hey, lay off the shrooms, bro. Lay off the weed a bit.
Am I wrong?
Yes, you are wrong. Because that's not what we're covering today.
Well, what are we covering?
Your favorite film of all time.
Don't spill the beans like that.
Hey, I'm only telling the truth.
Yeah, it's going to be no surprise. I've went on record, I think, already saying this.
Correct. Several times. Yes, dear listeners, we are covering the final entry in the Shōwa Godzilla series. Not counting 84. Terror of Mechagodzilla.
You mean Mechagodzilla no Gyakushu?
Or the Terror of Godzilla.
Or Mechagodzilla's Counterattack.
Or Monsters from an Unknown Planet. Or is it
That's the British title.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Or The Terror of Mechagodzilla. If you want to be like pretentious and facetious. Yeah, so okay. Oh boy. Where do we even start? Do we start? Honestly, man, I'm.
Well, I'll give you a bone and see where you take it. Just so for some context, obviously the last film we covered was Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which, whilst nowhere near the success of, say, the golden age of the Showa era Godzilla films, or even films like Submersion of Japan the previous year, it still was considered like a box office success compared to the Godzilla vs. Megalon, which was the first Godzilla film to have an attendance of below 1 million. So it was significant improvement upon that.
Right. And so with that, I mean, with Mechagodzilla being successful, they wanted to capitalize upon that. And there is some rumors that due to the successive prophecies of Nostradamus, Tomoyuki Tanaka decided to give Yoshimitsu Banno a second chance at directing a Godzilla film. And the rumor is he proposed the idea of Godzilla versus Hedorah 2 or Hedorah's Counterattack, which was going to have Hedorah appear in Africa. Now, it's unknown if that actually would have been the 75 film, but it's likely it was. Also, I mentioned this, I believe, last time, Godzilla vs. Gezera. That was another film that they proposed possibly could have been a 1975 film, but there's nothing to really confirm it. Yoshimitsu Banno has said himself that he was never approached.
Right, yeah. Yeah, but supposedly it was announced that the 1975 Godzilla film, like there was supposedly a public announcement for it to be directed by Yoshimitsu Banno. I could not find that original announcement, but as far as I know, the source for that in English fandom is Guy Tucker's book, Age of the Gods.
Yes.
So,
now,
yeah.
it's also important to note that there's quotes from Jun Fukuda, so the script was found through a contest. This was the first time Toho did one of their contests for submitting scripts for the Godzilla films.
Right.
And so during the contest, it was announced, and Jun Fukuda was actually one of the people who helped promote it. And he was like, we're very excited to work on the next film, whatever you guys pitch for a script. So at one point, Fukuda was involved.
Yeah.
But we also know that he was done with Godzilla. He wanted to move on. He was fed up with Godzilla. He didn't really want to do it anymore. He was offered the role of Godzilla, and he declined it because he said there was nothing left to be done. He was done with the character.
Yeah, and so then from there, obviously the competition went through, and in that they found the producer found a story penned by one Yukiko Takayama.
Now, this story was picked by not Tomoyuki Tanaka himself, but one of the people who was like heading the
Kenji
contest.
Tokoro. Kenji Tokoro was the one who selected it.
Gotcha, thank you. And then he gave it to Tanaka, and then Tanaka's like, yes, let's do this. And then the script was made, right? Now, the script was the first draft. There's 4 drafts total. The first draft was probably in fall of 1974, like late summer, early fall.
I think I believe it was either selected or approved on July 1st.
Okay.
Was the date that I saw.
Because I know draft 3 was done December 5th of 1974 with draft 4, which was the final draft before the shooting script that had revisions from the studio was done December 25th of 1970.
Right, and there's also a draft dated to October as well.
So that was draft 2.
Mm-hmm.
So July to October. Now, the initial script had 2 monsters named Titans. They were going to be male and female, and they would form and merge into one monster being Titanosaurus. Mm-hmm. That got cut after that first draft. In the second draft, it was Titanosaurus. And, I mean, for the most part, to my understanding, the changes following that was like, at one point, the monsters that Katsura would reference was Gorosaurus, Rodan, and like King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
But that got later changed to King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Manda, of course, stuff like that. Fake Godzilla was supposed to appear in, I think by the third draft, he was still there. And so, yeah, so she wrote those different variations of the script, and then eventually Shiro Honda got his hand on, I think, the fourth draft, and then he revised it further, and then that was the shooting script. He was the one who would come up with the opening montage, kind of recapping everything that happened. Tomoyuki Tanaka requested Godzilla appear in Shinagawa, like the original 54 film.
Yeah.
For the writer, her first scene that she came up with was the suicide scene at the very end of the film. And so, it underwent a lot of different not a lot of different variations, but a couple of minor differences.
Originally, that old scripts see.
Right. Originally, Tokyo was going to get absolutely destroyed, but due to budgets, a lot of the actual crazy effect sequences got cut and were replaced and whatnot. And, there's a couple of variations of a couple subplots that later on just kind of became nothing burgers in the final film that were explored further.
Yeah, I hear the love plot in particular was highlighted a lot more in either the second or third draft.
Mm-hmm. I believe third draft.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Now, it's no surprise this film was a sequel to Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla.
Shocking.
That was mostly because this was Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was very popular. It did very well. It was popular. It was probably the most popular following guy. It was the most popular following Gigan.
Well, yeah, there was only one other film.
Right. And so they wanted to market off of that. So in the marketing side of this film, it was pushed as the second Mechagodzilla film in the series.
Right.
And they were really pushing the Mechagodzilla aspect of it. Now, another interesting thing is the fourth draft was dated for the end of December. This film came out March 15th of 1975. It is the 15th Godzilla film. So its script was done basically January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
It was shot and edited and marketed and released in the time span of 3 months.
Yeah.
Which is an incredible turnaround.
Yeah, and I believe the shooting is the end of shooting is dated to about a month before release. So it's Jesus, man, these goddamn crew, how do they do it?
Honestly, it's kind of phenomenal that they were able to do this, to be honest.
How are these movies watchable? Genuine question.
Yeah.
How?
It was produced by Toho Izo. Again, this is the third Godzilla film produced by Toho Izo. Fourth, if you want to count the involvement they had on Godzilla vs. Gigan. And this was basically the special effects department of Toho at this point. They had become their own independent studio. Now, all of this being said, Jun Fukuda did not direct this film. Yoshimitsu Banno did not direct this film. Moriyoshi Oda did not direct this film. They brought back Ishiro Honda to direct this film.
Yes.
Now, for Honda, he had not directed an actual movie since 1970's Space Amoeba.
Yeah.
He had directed television episodes. He had worked on Zone Fighter, Return of Ultraman, Mirror Man. He had been doing small scale stuff like that. But this was his return to the cinemas. But it was very different, and I read some of his comments, and he talked heavily about how it felt really weird, or this might have been the writers, I don't remember, but it was really weird for Honda going from, the structured, the five company agreement with studio actors and extravagant sets, a lot of sound stages, on location filming, good large size budgets, 2 different teams working on the film's effects department and the drama department, which, in all fairness, All Monsters Attack did not have an effects department, but that was very new for Honda, and he only directed one other film for Toho after that. Or 2. He directed 2. He did Latitude Zero and he did Space Amoeba, I think. So for him, it was really weird coming into this with like whole new, like he only worked with like 4 people he previously worked with. It was like whole new crews, whole new actors, whole new setup, whole new studio. Toho Izo was not Toho.
Right, yeah, and it was the whole thing had really changed since since the death of Tsuburaya, and since the last film he worked on was Space of Me, but that was like right before all those changes went into effect. So yeah.
And also, this was following the success of films like Submersion of Japan and Prophecies of Nostradamus and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. So, and by this point, the franchise had taken a very different turn, right? You had Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which was more akin to a Honda film, but it was the beginning of the changes following the sports boom, the yokai boom, and the pollution aspects of culture.
It was from his pupil, so makes sense it'd be similar to his style.
And then you had Godzilla vs. Gigan, which took Hedorah and made it even more wild. And then you had Godzilla vs. Megalon, which went even deeper. And then Mechagodzilla, which kind of tried to course correct, but was still pretty deep in the hole. And then you get to this, right? And so now they're trying to replicate the success of Gigan and Mechagodzilla with returning to the roots, and they bring back the original creator. Now, some people are confused on why Honda took this job, which is fair. I mean, he was fed up with Godzilla by 1965.
Yeah.
Before then, he was fed up. So it was a little weird, and he didn't have anybody like that he knew. So it is a little weird that he would return to do this film, but he did either way. And what we get is a very interesting film. I'm going to start off with that. I'm going to be honest, it's going to be very difficult for me to fully articulate everything without revealing everything really quick. I have very strong opinions on this film.
Mm-hmm.
And after watching it this time around, my opinions have gotten even stronger, to be honest.
I look forward to hearing them.
Because this film, there's a lot to break down, right? This is the 15th Godzilla film. This is the last Godzilla film in the Shōwa era, the last Godzilla film in the 70s. So, and we've already established that the 70s had a formula. And the 70s had, for the most part, a pretty consistent crew, right?
Yeah.
It was the B team. It was the B team of the Shōwa era. And this film does not have the B team outside of Teruyoshi Nakano.
Mm-hmm.
This is the A team missing the people from the B team that were still around. Shinichi Sekizawa's gone. And that's probably the best decision the franchise could have made, which is an interesting statement for me to make, because I will wax philosophical on how Shinichi Sekizawa was one of the godfathers of kaiju.
Right. But unfortunately, as we've kind of discussed with a lot of his last few stories, like he was done with this franchise. He didn't want to do any more. He'd run out of ideas for what to really do that was new and interesting for the franchise, and the films were suffering. There was less going on with, say, the characters in particular in a lot of the 70s films like Gigan.
It's kind of, cliche to say this, but he lived long enough to see himself become the villain, right? Like he did not die a hero. He became the villain. Because when you break it down, what ended up happening is the films dried up.
Mm-hmm.
The films became too formulaic, they dried up, and there wasn't that interest to do it anymore. And that was on Sekizawa, and that was on Jun Fukuda, who had also been done. And so with that being, and that's something like hindsight is 2020, right? Like you can see in the slow degrade into what we ended up seeing, Shinichi Sekizawa had nothing left. Even though this film has Sekizawa like written all over it, the influence is there. This is undoubtedly a follow-up to the Sekizawa story elements, but it's fresh. And that's very interesting. And when we do get into the actual film, we're going to talk about that, because this script is very derivative of what worked in the Shōwa era. But it's not derivative of just one specific film, and that's why this film works. And I love Shinichi Sekizawa, but I think looking at the franchise as we've covered Gigan, Megalon, and Mechagodzilla all right now, and again, great placement for us covering these films, because we covered All Monsters Attack and Hedorah really close to each other. Great double feature because those films cover the same concepts, but at different angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we cover all of the remaining 70s films back to back has greatly impacted just how I look at these films, because they work together so well. I'm not saying they're good. They work together so well as a group because you can see where things went wrong. You see the degrade. You see where the course needs to be corrected. And you see the problems. And the problems, at the end of the day, don't come from the effects department. They don't come from the direction. They come from the script. The script for these films had become too cliche and too predictable. And that was something that the Shōwa era prior to the 70s had against other films. They were kind of unpredictable. You didn't know what you were going to see. And I know it's funny to say that because, Godzilla did the kick. Godzilla had his magnetic powers. Godzilla flew in the 70s. Yes. But there was a lot of creative liberties in the earlier films and a lot of differences. You know, King Kong versus Godzilla is a satire on commercialism and capitalism. Mothra versus is a satire on capitalism. And then you have Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, which is a Brotherhood of Mankind story before it is any social, political, economical statements. But
makes this a bit of Roman holiday.
Right. And then you have Invasion of Astro Monster, which is this space opera, right? And then you have Ibra, Horror of the Deep, which is this Gilligan's Island, well, not necessarily Gilligan's Island, but terrorist organization, crime-fighting jungle adventure, right?
Right.
Influenced by that of James Bond.
Yeah, no, and see, going to that point, like that's the thing. That's one of the biggest, strongest aspects of the Godzilla franchise, and one that I think fans always talk about is the versatility of Godzilla as a character in the franchise as a whole. And so that's why it's so important to see these movies being written and coming from people of all different perspectives, all walks of life. So where a lot of the 70s films are kind of just coming all from the same place that most of the 60s Godzilla films had already come from, we were essentially just putting on a new skin of what we'd already seen.
Right.
Which is the biggest failing of a lot of those films, in that they are the other films again, but with less developed stories.
Absolutely. I'm trying to remember. I think we compared Godzilla versus Gigan to, was it Mothra?
Gigan was just trying to, specifically as a great example of
Astro
one that
Monster.
was trying to recapture that magic of, like Astro Monster or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the specific goal. That's why King Ghidorah's in it.
Right. And then Megalon was more of a derivative of Gigan, which was already a derivative of Astro Monster. And then you have Mechagodzilla, which is a little bit it's a return to the 60s formula, but also it's a little too overzealous, right? You know, they're trying a little too hard, right? And that was our biggest problem with that film. So going into this, like, you've got Hedorah, which is lacking character depth, but very heavy on the metaphors. Then you have Gigan, which is lacking everything and is more a heartless attempt to redo Astro Monster, right? And then you have Megalon, which is just trying to rehash Gigan.
Well, so I wouldn't even say Megalon's a rehash of Gigan. Megalon's just its own just theatrical tokusatsu, like television episode movie.
That's fair. Yeah, because
it's not really trying to do
absolutely
Gigan. Like, it's not doing any of that again, really. Outside of just featuring Gigan in a reference to Nebulans.
That's true. You do have a good point, because it does, at the end of the day, that film does reek of just being like a Toei tokusatsu show, right?
Right, even down to there being like seemingly no civilian life outside of our cast.
Mm-hmm. And then you get to Mechagodzilla, which does have a little bit more heart to it. But it does fall into those same issues that Sekizawa's been having for the last few films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, with that all being said, I think we should just head. I think we're kind of busting to get into the film here.
I would agree. Yeah, because, man, this film. Oh boy, I am not one to take this film very lightly. Before we really dive too heavily into it, I'm going to start off by saying this. Terror of Mechagodzilla was my first Godzilla movie. And if you listen to how I talk and what I appreciate, you're going to hear a lot of things that this film has that I love. I love dolly shots. I love high angle shots. I love extreme angle shots. I love dramas. I love dark films. I love explosions. I love really well done effects. This film has all of those.
Can you believe this is probably the last Shōwa film I saw?
Really?
Yeah, I think it was. I think so. And probably like the second or third last. Maybe the third last Godzilla film I'd seen. I think 84 and Bio were the last two.
Okay.
So this is one that, you know, I've seen it a few times, but it's probably less nostalgia for me than a lot of the other films in this franchise, I'd say.
See, I'm going to be honest. I nostalgia will play a huge part in what I have to say.
Of course.
But upon rewatching it, I also kind of realized a couple things that I do love about this film that I didn't realize until rewatching. But first off, the title sequence, which it's stock footage, but it's very explosive. Boom, explosions right off the bat. This is Teruyoshi Nakano's grand hurrah for explosions in a Godzilla film.
Yeah. And this is how we get our Godzilla appearing in the opening scene without
yes.
Without watching any weird story scene.
That was something I noticed, was that this is the through line for the 70s Godzilla films is Godzilla shows up immediately, right? But in the case of this film, they do it more tactfully than any other 70s Godzilla film did, right, by it just being a small recap. Yeah. Now, that being said, it does, it's like a 5-minute intro. It's a 5-minute recap. But it falls in line with the idea of they're trying to emulate 70s tokusatsu television, right? And because Honda had directed a lot of episodes, he probably was well aware of stuff like that existing. And this being the follow-up film, a direct sequel, it makes sense to have that establishment of what is Mechagodzilla. Oh, this is Mechagodzilla. This is Mechagodzilla and Godzilla fighting. It actually, like, narratively speaking, it makes sense why you would include this. And once you consider that, like, this is a year after that film, they're going to probably want some sort of reintroduction to the character.
Right, and this is also before, like, home video as well.
Mm-hmm. So they had probably not seen the film
since it come out.
Yeah. All of which just, I think, is brilliantly well done here. We also get our opening title sequences with our credits all over this stock footage that we see.
And this beautiful Ifukube score.
Oh my god. So yes, Ifukube got brought back here. I love this score.
This is one of
his... Oh my god.
This is one of his best. This genuinely one of his best.
It's so deep and dark in contrast to kind of his more like upbeat scores that he had done for previous Godzilla films.
Right.
And it is no secret that this film is trying to return to 54. They're trying to do something a little more serious, a little more dark. And Ifukube's score is one of those ways that they do it. And it's beautiful. I adore this score.
Yeah. I do think it's funny how this recap does try editing around King Caesar, but you can still see him a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know why they cut King Caesar. Maybe they were just trying to establish the whole, like,
I mean, it's
Godzilla.
Focused on the rivalry between Godzilla and Mechagodzilla, and it's probably also to avoid raising the question of, hey, why in the audience, like, if we see King Caesar here, why don't we get that guy to come back and help Godzilla? Like, that's probably the reason, really.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I just think it's funny either way.
Right, yeah. But following our introduction with this montage, we do get our first action sequence pretty quickly overall. I was actually pretty surprised by just how quickly it actually.
Right. I mean, this film's very, very quick watch. It's only 80 minutes, and sorry, it's strange because my first watch, I remember finding it quite slow, but every subsequent watch, it's like, wow, this is a really fast-paced film.
Oh yeah. That was something that when I rewatched it, I was like, oh my god, what is going on? Genuinely, biggest takeaway from this rewatch is this film is such a breeze.
Oh, 100%.
This is the breeziest Godzilla film that I think I've watched. Which I that kind of furthers establishes just why I love this film so much. But it is such a breeze. It is such a breeze to sit through. And I one thing I actually noticed as we go in here into, the establishing shots of Katsura watching as this submarine goes on its maiden voyage. Did you get horror vibes from this movie as well?
A little. Actually, I did notice some of the music almost gave me gothic horror vibes in a couple scenes. Namely, like the flashback scene of Katsura's death around the middle, a little before the middle.
Yeah. No, there's some dark moments in the score, and like they straight up call Dr. Mifone's house a haunted house. You've got creepy men. Like, you've got the crows chirping. It kind of reminded me of, like, the vibe of, like, the Dracula films Toho had produced.
I mean, even the color of the film, Like obviously these transfers aren't the greatest. Look, like just following like these, looking at these transfers, there's a noticeable difference in the look of this film compared to Megalon or Mechagodzilla. It's a lot more desaturated, but not in a bad way, mind you.
I mean, the fact that
very much fits the tone.
Right. I mean, Titanosaurus in this opening sequence as he attacks the sub is like shrouded in shadows and water effects. And when we do see him, it's like dark and like low angle shots.
Right. And there's more low lighting in this film compared to, say, the previous film, especially at the mansion setting. The on-location shooting there is a lot darker. Oh, this film's lighting is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
And even in the sub, like it's all red lighting, like kind of emphasizing that danger a little bit, you know?
Right.
It's just very beautiful. Like this film does a beautiful job at its lighting. And I think that speaks to just how talented of a director Honda was, because he knew how to light a set. He knew what he wanted in his lighting. They very well could have made this opening sequence of Titanosaurus attacking the sub look really funny and not very good. But instead we get fast-paced editing and we get close-up shots of Titanosaurus instead. We get cuts of the reactions of the people in the subs, and we see like the sub breaking and whatnot. Just when we think that the sub is going to make it, Titanosaurus emerges, and it's such an extreme low-angle shot looking up at the monster. And Teruyoshi Nakano does multiple shots where the camera's just watching and looking from above or from below. And
right, and in a lot of those shots because they couldn't really, the cinematographer found he couldn't really achieve those on the soundstage. They ended up filming a lot of those outside. And I think for this one of Titanosaurus specifically, that works so well here.
It looks beautiful. It looks
incredible here.
Absolutely beautiful. And okay, I don't remember. It's been a little bit since I've seen Ace, Taro, and Leo. But these low angle shots is now like a staple of Ultraman. Like I know specifically modern day Ultraman loves to do shots like this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason for that. And that's because these type of shots in these tokusatsu projects look beautiful. They establish so much weight, so much scale. It is so like it speaks volumes to the fact that like this was done in 1975, and now in every Ultraman episode you get that. They knew what they were doing. And it is so clear that the people working on this film knew what they were doing, or they had a talented director telling them. Tomoko Ai, who played Katsura Mifune in this film, she had not done a feature film before this.
Right.
She has complimented and talked very highly of how Ishiro Honda directed her. She knew exactly what to do. She had no questions. She knew what she needed to do. She was told what she was expected to do. And it works. And it's so obvious that Honda knew what he wanted.
Right.
This is like letting a master do his craft. That is exactly what you get here.
I mean, the thing with Honda is that he wasn't afraid to just act out and visibly show to the actors what he wanted. That was kind of his style of directing.
And so, right, like, and bear in mind, all of this happens, and then we get a boardroom sequence establishing our main character, Ichinose, and we get an establishment of the main human thing, which is trying to figure out, they're trying to learn more about what this dinosaur is. Even though this is a Mechagodzilla film, and it's a part of the Godzilla franchise, they emphasize on Titanosaurus as the main monster.
Right.
So heavily. And it's such a great idea because Titanosaurus is a complex monster. And they don't get to explore just how complex of a monster he is throughout the film. But in the subtext and what you hear and what you can draw through understanding, it is so obvious and clear in this film what exactly like they wanted Titanosaurus to be.
Mm-hmm. I also appreciate, I didn't realize this before, but I appreciated how the continuity carryover of Interpol's involvement in this film.
Yes, Interpol's.
I genuinely did not realize that they carried that over from the previous film. I thought that was really neat.
That being said, the fact that they're over on the Bonin Islands and not near Okinawa is a continuity error. There's some major continuity errors between Mechagodzilla and Terror.
I heard someone say that there actually is like an explanation. That I hear someone say there's like a map or something in the film that shows they were actually exploring Okinawa somewhere. I can't confirm if that's true, but it's what I read somewhere.
In my head canon, I always just kind of wrote it off as like they're looking like it could have like been dispersed. Like currents could have taken stuff and moved it.
I mean, it's also Shōwa Godzilla continuity where like Godzilla's iceberg teleports to like a whole different location in King Kong versus. So, you know.
Right. But no, I do love the Interpol inclusion here, and we get our what our main characters are going to be doing for the entire film. And what one of the good things this film does is it doesn't give those characters 5 subplots, right? Everything's linked to the dinosaur and learning more about Titanosaurus while uncovering the mystery. And that is what they do, right? That's the entire, like, they don't even worry about Mechagodzilla.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Mechagodzilla for a film titled off with his name in the goddamn title, he's really not all that much of a focus. He doesn't even really show up properly or get activated really until about over an hour in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And see, I think that speaks volumes because the way that the script is laid out, Mechagodzilla is Godzilla's problem. Godzilla fights Mechagodzilla primarily. Titanosaurus is the human's problem. And the fact that like we get that as our two like conflicts for our monsters, I think is really genius because that's not something we've seen before. It's always been Godzilla's fighting the monsters and the humans are trying to help Godzilla. Look at Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla's the problem for King Caesar and Godzilla and the humans, so they're all trying to fight Mechagodzilla. In Godzilla versus...
But also something I appreciate is Mechagodzilla himself isn't just solved by letting Godzilla do all the work.
Right. In this one, the humans directly impact Mechagodzilla.
Yes.
And that's where I think this film does pull from Sekizawa, right? You know, because if you look at like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, you know, Princess Salno predicts all of the monsters' appearances. She's the one leading our characters into the battle. The Shobijin's the one that talks to Mothra. Mothra's the one that talks to Godzilla and Rodan that end up teaming up and fighting. During all of that, we do have the monsters who stop the assassins from killing Princess Salno and then stop them from shooting Shindo and whatnot. You know, that is the Sekizawa flavor that humans are impacting humans and the monsters are impacting monsters and their stories cross over and that's how they get impacted. That shows up here with Katsura and her relationship to Ichinose and Dr. Mifune and the Black Hole Alien 3 alien.
I mean, the thing that kind of separates this from a Sekizawa script, though, is it's a Sekizawa script has a human plot and a monster plot that is maybe not quite equal, but still like a good chunk of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this film has your plot with Ichinose, but then it also has the Mifune and aliens plot. The monster plot is what is kind of the glue between them, but the monster plot is not its own thing, really.
Right. And I think part of that, too, is because of the fact that the humans are directly controlling the monsters.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And so when our villains are having their moments, that's when the monsters show up. Humans are the real monsters, and that, at the end of the day, that is the core theme of this movie, is that humans are the real monsters. Dr. Mifune says Mechagodzilla is not a perfect killing machine because he doesn't have a living side to it. The fact that it doesn't have that that living side, and what is the living side that it's given? It's given Katsura. Katsura is a human. What makes Mechagodzilla the perfect killing machine is a human brain. Titanosaurus is controlled by humans. And the aliens, even though they are aliens, they do look like humans. They act like humans. They really aren't different from humanity.
Mm-hmm.
This film, and Ishiro Honda really wanted to explore the concept of humans controlling nature and how, humans are thinking, I'm going to quote Godzilla 2014 here, humans are thinking nature is in our control and not the other way around. Let them fight. That's kind of what Honda wanted to explore here, was the idea of humanity wanting to control nature and how that was a bad thing. This is just like the idea of humans learning how to split the atom and the creation of the atomic bomb.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to the whole science run amok, gone too far attitude that the first Godzilla essentially has been a consistent theme of the entire franchise.
Mm-hmm. And
the running theme, so to speak.
In this film, it also explores the idea of technology being a part of that, right? Because of the power, not only is it science, but it's technology, because Mechagodzilla, everybody has interpreted Godzilla and Mechagodzilla fighting nature versus artificial, like AI, right?
Right.
So that's just kind of second nature to Mechagodzilla as a character. But that inclusion of like science going too far, Dr. Mifune went too far, and we see him take multiple deep hits. He loses so much in this film. Not only does he lose it's established he loses his job, he loses his wife, he loses his own life, and he loses his daughter's life. His entire life is destroyed by his desire to control Titanosaurus and to seek revenge upon people who told him that he was going too far.
Right.
And that is such that's Dr. Serizawa.
Right.
Dr. Serizawa,
fittingly played by Hirata, of course.
Exactly. Dr. Serizawa lost Emiko to Ogata. Dr. Serizawa lost his own life. Dr. Serizawa lost his whole everything about him. He lost everything to make the ultimate sacrifice. And what's so interesting is, in Godzilla 54, Serizawa's a hero. Serizawa's the character that saves the day, a tragic loss to humanity. They say that today we have humanity is lost a good man, right? We see the opposite effect here, where humanity loses somebody who has lost his way. It shows that science isn't always
right, but his death is still tragic in its own right. Like, he does end. He is, at the end of the day, regretful of his actions. Like, he gets confronted by the fact that Katsura, not only is Katsura a cyborg, but she's become a part of the killing machine, Mechagodzilla. And he regrets that. He realizes the consequences of his actions.
And I think a very, very intelligent thing to do here is, before all of this happens, before she becomes Mechagodzilla's control apparatus, she directly tells her father, is Titanosaurus going to join the ranks of the killers like King Ghidorah, Mighty Rodan, and Terrible Manda? She directly talks about joining the ranks of the killers, and then she becomes the controlling device for the most destructive weapon on Earth. the machine that literally destroys Tokyo by blowing it to pieces. She becomes the killing machine. She becomes what she dreaded most. And it's not because of her. She is not the reason for that. It's because of the choices her father made. And once you consider that he has lost his wife because of poverty and because of, what was the two reasons? Poverty and...
I thought it was something related to his obsession with his work.
I think so. Because he already lost her for that, it shows a more tragic side to him because he didn't learn. He didn't grow as a person, and now he loses the second most important person in his life. It is such good writing. It is such good writing. These characters have such compelling story elements. Dr. Mifune is one of the greatest, most tragic characters written in a Godzilla film because, in a way, he reminds... Have you seen Uncut Gems?
No.
Okay. I'm going to kind of... Do you care for spoilers?
No.
Okay. So, spoiler alert for Uncut Gems. Great film, by the way. Great film, A24. Adam Sandler stars in it. It's by the Safdie brothers. So... in the film, Adam Sandler plays this jeweler who lives in New York, who has a crippling gambling addiction. And he gambles all of his money away. And the whole film is watching this guy slowly ruin his life. He loses his wife. He loses his kids. He gambles away money. He gets in debt. He gets debt collectors after him. He makes the ultimate gamble. He ends up winning, but by the time he wins, it's too late and he dies. He gets killed. When I watched Uncut Gems, I was in total shock by the ending of the film. Total shock. My mouth was agape. Amazing film. Truly amazing. The fact that he did not get nommed for an Oscar for that performance baffles me. But that character Adam Sandler played was brilliantly well written. Because he's a character you want to see succeed, but he does not, because the folly of man is what ends up besting him. And at the end of the day, Godzilla's always represented the folly of man. And Dr. Mifune is a character that represents that through and through. His greed, his ego, his desire to be more is what ultimately destroys his life. And that is so well put together in this film. And we're not even
consistent. And it's great because he's consistently given these chances for a character arc and then is just punished for his decisions through his choices. His choices lead to all his punishments. It's great.
Mm-hmm. And he's not even the main character. And look at all that he's got going on. That's brilliant. That is truly brilliant. Now, am I going to sit here and say that every character in this film is brilliantly well written? No. The side characters are side characters. They don't get anything in this film. And that wasn't always the case. There was supposed to be more development, and our two main villains, our main alien villains, do not get any development. They're the same. They're static characters. They don't really do a lot.
Right, but that's fine when you have Mifune here, I feel.
Exactly. Mifune...
Mifune fills that void.
Mifune, Katsura, and Ichinose are at the end of the day, they are your core characters. And it's obvious they are. This film succeeds in where Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla does not. It keeps its core characters tight. And it explores their stories. And we get the most compelling love story in the Godzilla franchise. It's the saddest one. It is the most depressing. This film is so depressing. This film is such a realist approach to story writing. This is a bleak film if I've ever seen a bleak film. There is no happy ending outside of that for Godzilla. every other character in this film is outside of your side characters who don't get directly impacted by the story itself. Your side characters, and oddly enough, Godzilla himself is a side character.
Yeah.
This script,
he's 100% a supporting role here.
This script has went out of its way to establish that the side characters who are not directly intertwined with our core characters get a happy ending. Godzilla gets a happy ending. The Interpol agents get a happy ending. The ocean marine biologists get happy endings. The only ones that don't get happy endings are the aliens, Mechagodzilla, Titanosaurus, Dr. Mifune, Katsura, and Ichinose. The characters that are directly causing and intertwined in our problem. Those are the ones that do not get the happy ending. And sure, for the aliens, that's good for the audiences. We don't want to see those win. We don't want to see Mechagodzilla win. Titanosaurus is a tragic being. We see that. We see Godzilla doesn't want to fight Titanosaurus, but he still ends up killing him. Does he kill him though? I think he does.
Does he? I don't know. I never took it as him killing him. I think Tanaka says somewhere that he's still alive. Take Tanaka's word for what it is.
I think that is one.
I don't know. The movie's not really explicit with whether or not he actually dies.
Right.
A monster falling into the ocean after getting blasted isn't exactly a surefire confirmation of their death.
Right. It's just either way, this film ends with all of our main core characters and the aliens who are side characters all getting bad endings. And I love that. I love that about this script. I love this script. See, and we're like 10 minutes into the film and I'm already gushing.
Oh, that's right, we were. Speaking of the aliens, the next scene where we were is our introduction to them.
Yeah, they're in a hotel high-rise building talking about how they're going to destroy Japan. Okay. Yeah, one thing I don't understand is why the aliens are so interested in having a Earthling scientist work on their stuff. I don't get that. Because that was one of my questions of the last film too. Is like, okay, why do they need him?
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. They've also got all the human prisoners, which I took it as they were rebuilding Mechagodzilla for the aliens, before, because Mifune wasn't even involved in Mechagodzilla until he doesn't know about their involvement in that until later on in this film.
Right.
By this point, he's just involved with Titanosaurus, and they're helping his research by this point.
And I guess you could argue the fact they want him on his side because of the whole Titanosaurus thing, but I don't remember if they are aware that he control. I guess they are aware he's controlling Titanosaurus. So I guess that's it. Is we're gonna befriend him because he has a monster.
It also raises some questions how have the aliens have seemingly been on Earth for about 10 or 15 years as well.
Really?
Why didn't... Yeah, because the flashback...
Well, the flashback's establishing that Dr. Mifune...
flashback where Katsura dies. It's not explicit when that takes place. It's not explicit, but it's at the very least a few years prior. Most people take it as the 10, 15 years. I'm willing to give it some lenience and say maybe it's 5 years because it's not really explicit, but still raises a question. Mifune is clearly younger there.
Right. Yeah, that is that. There is that little bit of okay, what is the actual timeline here, right? Because bear in mind, this is a sequel to Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which came out the year prior, right? So we know they've been around for at least a year, But you could also say, well, they did build the Mechagodzilla base in Okinawa, and they also built this other one. They built Mechagodzilla. They rebuilt Mechagodzilla. So there's just not a well establishment of what time period everything's happening in.
I mean, the thing is, the film goes by quick enough and doesn't focus on it enough for it to really be that major of an issue. It's not super glaringly obvious, I would say. It's nowhere near as obvious as like a lot of the storytelling issues of the previous film. I would say that.
Right.
And it's like the script is solid enough where I'm more willing to let it slide as well, because I think the story it's in service of telling works better.
Yeah, I think I think at the end of the day, one of the things that I love about the script is the fact that like they are more focused on telling you a compelling story with a meaning than necessarily focusing on all the technical aspects.
Right, exactly. I will take this Katsura stuff, like a compelling drama with Katsura, over like the logistics of the beat by beat plot making more sense. I will take all the Katsura stuff over that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Speaking of which, we do get the establishment following this of like how Dr. Mifune tried to control animal life. This is our main heroes at the Marine Ocean Life Research Facility. This is where we do directly just get the metaphor of the film like spoken to us, which is, should mankind have such power to control nature? Which another thing is the fact that, like, the usage of Godzilla in this film, like nobody knows like where Godzilla is gonna come out. He just kind of pops up. Like nobody can control him, and I think
he just has his own agency. It's great.
And I think that also speaks, like, he doesn't show up to help the sub. He literally shows up to save Tokyo. And that's literally it.
And vaguely to save some kids.
Right.
Vaguely.
Like, they definitely treat Godzilla as he is off doing his own thing.
Right.
And I'm all for that. I love the fact that in this film, Godzilla is... He's not the main character.
He's not really mentioned outside. Like
he's
outside
mentioned
of the
a minute before he shows up every time.
Yeah, exactly. Like other than like the minute of mild build-up he gets, he's not mentioned. Again, he's intertwined in the plot. He's not actively involved in it outside of the fights, which is really interesting, but it works.
Right, because, I mean, there's not really a Godzilla film, I think, that follows this same concept. You know, this film is not...
2014? Because he's not really actively involved in the plot outside of he's hunting the Mutos.
Yeah, but he also... Like, they intertwine him enough with the rest of the story. I feel like he's kind of...
Do they, though?
I mean, he saves Ford like 4 times.
4? Whatever. This isn't about 2014.
The boat, the nest,
yeah,
Honolulu. Maybe it's 3 times. But
I didn't even say he saves Ford in Honolulu.
But either way, this film, like, I would say that 2014 shows Godzilla sometimes just for the sake of reminding you that he's in the movie. This film
pretty much
does not care. This film is telling a story, and Godzilla will show up when he needs to.
Right.
And I love that. I cannot, like, the fact that they literally only talk about Godzilla when he's about to show up says something. The lack of Godzilla in this film is probably the reason this film stands out among everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I love that. I love that so much because this film knows, okay, everybody knows Godzilla. Everybody knows Godzilla. You know Mechagodzilla. let's explore Titanosaurus and the human characters, and Mechagodzilla and Godzilla will show up when they need to.
Right. Exactly. This film actually, the writer, Yukiko Takayama, clearly cares about the story that she is telling in this film. The story isn't in service of Godzilla. Godzilla is in service of the story. Something which a lot of the 70s films, particularly, say, Gigan, don't really have.
And
where the story is in service of Godzilla showing up to fight the monster at the end.
I would even go as far as to say that this film, in contrast to literally every other Godzilla film, doesn't feel the need to do anything with Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would argue that this is probably one of the only films that's like, yeah, Godzilla. We don't need to explore it. He's going to show up when we need him to. And they're not afraid. And that's really interesting. I genuinely believe that's like one of the most interesting aspects of this film, is just the fact this film is so confident that it can tell a story without giving you Godzilla, that's exactly what it does. And I wish that somebody else in this world would have the confidence to do that with the character.
Yeah.
That would be such an interesting and fresh take. I mean, it's been done here, obviously, but it would be so fresh to see a film that doesn't have to cut back to Godzilla to remind you he's in the film. Just show him when he needs to when he needs to show up.
Well, I could name a Godzilla movie that does that.
Which one?
I can name a trilogy of them that basically does that.
That's different. Those have terrible scripts and horrible stories and really awful metaphors, and like everything about them is actually bad. Even the animation's bad. There's like nothing good about those films you're referring to. In fact, I would venture as far as to say they're probably the worst things in the history of the world.
I love that shot where Godzilla's turning around and he's literally not animated. They're just turning the model. It's great.
I don't remember what you're talking about, and I don't really want to. So, Terror of Mechagodzilla. I love how they like carry the character of Godzilla in this film.
Right.
Honestly, this whole episode's going to be me saying, I love this, I love that, I love this, I love that, I love this, I love this, I love Lamp.
Yeah, I was expecting
Lamp.
that.
This might be the most positive you're ever going to hear me.
Yeah.
Actually, it is, because there's not a film I would talk more positive about than this one.
We're going to need hopefully next episode, we're going to find a movie that you absolutely despise.
The whiplash. The tonal whiplash.
God, where were we in the plot again?
So they're at the Marine Institute. We get the establishment of Dr. Mifone's kind of crazy. He's trying to control animals. We get the name drop of the actual like theme of the film.
Right. And then we get some Ultra Kaiju cameos.
And then we see our main characters going back to Dr. Mifone's house, which this was another moment where I was like, man, look at the lighting. Look at how they're designing all this. This looks like a horror film.
Right. And this is where they're Ichinose and his friend are introduced to Katsura.
Star-crossed lovers at first sight.
That is one thing I kind of wish this film was a little longer, just to have a little more of the romance plot between Katsura and Ichinose.
I love the fact that like they can't get it off the ground. Because speaking from personal experience, the idea of a romance not working out before it can even happen is more depressing than it working out and it failing. Because then it's like the what
I
if.
don't even need it. I don't even need it to like work, like to have show it working out. Just a little more between, just a tad more between them. A little more directly showing that spark. Just a little more for me, and I think it just would hit harder. I think.
I could see where you would say that. Because I do think they also cut some of the romance plot too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, apparently like draft, what was it, 3 had more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love just a little more back. But it's also like I want more of this because I like what's here.
Mm-hmm.
I like this story. I like the story being told. I think what's being told is effective, but I think it could just go a little bit of the extra mile with that.
Right.
And it would be so much better for it, I feel.
I could definitely see how that would increase the quality. I don't have a problem with it, but I can see.
I think it still works. I think it works still. Again, could just hit harder.
Now, following the introduction to Katsura and Ichinose, she kind of is like, buzz off. I'm not going to help you. I got nothing. Leave me alone. And so they do, and then Katsura goes down, and we learn that Mifune's down there. They have like a secret area there, and Katsura and Mifune get taken to the aliens' home base, which is where we get to see Mechagodzilla being rebuilt. And may I just say, first of all, amazing music. Again, Ifukube knocking it out of the park. Second of all, the detail in the Mechagodzilla hangar for this film is amazing.
I mean, in general, I think the production design for the aliens is, in general, just an improvement over the previous film. It feels, how do I put it? It feels just right. Whereas the Kuronuma's base on Okinawa kind of felt almost empty in certain areas. This one, like, particularly in this scene, like in the room where Katsura and Mifune see first shown Mechagodzilla, like the room has just got that perfect amount of detail where it's a simple design, but it's not too simple.
It's also
it feels right.
They also backtrack on the Ultra or the Kyodai hero alien influence. Like, it's not as over designed, and I think that helps too. Like, even in the spacesuits, like they don't have like the monkey emblems, and the helmets aren't as crazy. And I love that stuff. I love the campy look of this stuff.
Right. I mean, I love like the weird, like metallic, like the reflective material they have in 74. I love that, but it also looks really weird. I think the cleaner look of the alien suits here looks a lot better overall. And it's just a more generally appealing design, I think.
Right. And I think that's also a great contrast to Mechagodzilla, which does look like Mechagodzilla looks pretty beaten up and like they literally rebuilt the robot, right?
Right.
That contrast of like the sleekness and cleanness of everything else, and then Mechagodzilla is such a good dynamic. Like it creates a very nice visual for this film. Also,
damn, this isn't shown in this scene, but near the end when the one guy Suda rips off his face. God damn.
Yeah, that's gnarly.
That's awesome.
Speaking of death, following this scene, we do get the death of Kusagari, who was one of the members of Interpol who was on the submarine when Titanosaurus attacked. We get him trying to escape, and he ends up dying at the hands of the Black Hole Planet 3 aliens. But so Rex, as an editor, were you a little like annoyed at the editing choices in the chase sequence here?
What was it? Is this where there's a lot of fast cutting?
Yes, there's a ton of back and forth fast cutting.
Yeah, I did notice that here, and it wasn't just this scene.
There's a lot of janky edits in this film.
100%. A very infamous scene of the old man watching Katsura and Ichinose in particular is probably the most egregious scene by far. Like in this scene, it's at least motivated. Like, this is meant to be an intense scene, so the fast cutting is meant to accentuate that.
Right.
Like, it's too fast for my tastes, but like, it's getting the effect that it's going for regardless.
Right. And that's it makes sense why they're doing it, but this film, if I did have to criticize it, and it's obvious as to why, because the film was shot literally like 2 months out before release. They probably edited the film in like 2-3 weeks. The post-production, because there's a lot of sound editing issues as well, like following the scene in some of the boardroom scenes, it sounds like it's raw camera audio, like it's echoey, and it sounds like they're away from the camera, and then like they'll cut and it's like crisp and clean, like it was done in post. There's a lot of janky cuts and janky audio clips where things just don't sound right, like they don't match up. And so I will say that this film, in terms of editing, it has some of the lesser quality editing. And if you're like comparing Mechagodzilla to Terror, I think Mechagodzilla's got way better editing. But that is probably the one negative thing about this film that I would give.
Right. Yeah, I think that is I think that's the most like explicit flaw with the filmmaking here, is just the editing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, side note, why did that guy flip? Why did he do a flip?
Because it looked cool.
Fair enough. It just felt really out of place.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. And in our next scene, after a little boardroom meeting between the Interpol members, then we get another meeting between us, as you stated, star-crossed lovers.
Now, this is the beginning of the actual romance, I would say, where Ichinose reveals that they found some of his notes and they're going to send out another sub, and Katsura's like, don't do it, please don't. Spoiler alert, they still do. During all this, the old man, like you brought up, the awkwardly edited in old man's kind of watching from afar.
Right.
And then she ends up returning home, and this is where we get our origins for the aliens saving Katsura, making her a cyborg, and forcing her to have no emotion.
Right. Meanwhile, the Interpol agents get informed of the aliens' base in Amagi. Right,
because they get, they're told about Kusagari and the space titanium he has, and all of that leads to them being able to figure out where that's at. And then following this, I believe this is where we start to get more monster destruction stuff, because we do get the Titanosaurus attack sequence with the submarine.
Yeah.
Which I will say, this scene doesn't really have anything too spectacular. It does reveal that Titanosaurus'
weakness
is supersonic waves. And then that is now, so they do a very good job. We're about halfway through the film. About halfway. A little under. And now we get introduced to Titanosaurus' weakness. So now our characters, halfway through the film, change gears from what is Titanosaurus' weakness to let's create a weapon to fight Titanosaurus' weakness. And that fills our human characters' time for the rest of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Eventually, Katsura ends up having a conversation with Ichinose in order to end up finding out what is Titanosaurus' weakness, as her and Mifune have no clue what actually happened to the monster.
During this, they go on like a dinner date, and we get our first appearance of Claire de Lune by Claude Debussy in a Godzilla film, which I love this rendition. It's so beautiful.
I like the little bit with the co-worker as well.
That's just like watching them from afar.
Yeah. And is really excited for Ichinose. I love that bit. It's such a small thing that I didn't even remember this character existed in the film.
Right.
But I love it. It's great.
And then after that, she goes back to talk to her father. During this, that's when we get the Ghidorah, Rodan, and Manda cameos. Now, it's important to note that there is a little bit of stock footage in this film. We get most of it here, where we get footage from Invasion of Astro Monster, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and Destroy All Monsters. Obviously, we talked about the Mechagodzilla stuff, but there's stock footage from Mothra versus Godzilla, War of the Gargantuas and the Mysterians as well. That's during the upcoming sequence of Titanosaurus attacking Japan.
Right, and obviously there's a bit more Mechagodzilla stock footage near the end during Mechagodzilla's all-out assault.
Right. Now, this is where we do get the whole, will Titanosaurus join the ranks of the killers? I do think it's very interesting because they're so worried about Titanosaurus, and then that's why, and because of them being worried about Titanosaurus, that's why Katsura gets into the pickle she's in. That's why she gets killed, in air quotes, and then becomes the Mechagodzilla control device. All very well done. I love it.
Yeah, speaking of which, so Mifune orders Katsura to unleash Titanosaurus on Tokyo without consulting the aliens.
Which, when the aliens learn about this, they're like, oh, one of them's worried. The other one's like, no, look at this. And they look at a super Geiger counter. and they're like, what's Mechagodzilla's ultimate foe? And they're like, Godzilla. And then, like we established, every time Godzilla gets mentioned, he shows up within a minute after. Also, It is established that Katsura then goes and destroys the supersonic...
Sabotages, with the old man as well.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Who is that guy? Is he like their caretaker or something? Like the house or something?
I guess. They never really establish it. Now, I will bring it up now. Some of the compositing in this film is well done. But some of it is also really rough. Like, the scale gets thrown off, and sometimes, like, the composite's really shaky or it just doesn't hold up. Not nearly. The compositing in this film is not nearly as polished as it was in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. But this is one of those moments where I can look past the bad effects because everything else is so well done.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And we do, speaking of which, we do get the weird, like, teleporting old man and Katsura during all of this, where, like, they'll just disappear. It happens a lot, so it's probably not accidental, but it is kind of funky, and they never establish it.
Right, yeah. I mean, to be fair, Mechagodzilla, not in the same regard, but Mechagodzilla's teleporting a bit in the final battle.
Yeah.
He straight up disappears at one point, like between shots when they cut to an alternate angle.
Mm-hmm. Now, while all this is happening, Titanosaurus is destroying Japan, and we get at 4:40 or 48:49, we get the entrance of Godzilla. Now, bear in mind, the film is 83 minutes and 36 seconds long. Godzilla shows up 48 minutes and 49 seconds in. If you want to...
Right, and he's only in this scene. This scene only lasts, like, what, a minute and a half, maybe?
Yeah. Now, there's only 35 minutes left of this film. Over halfway through the film, Godzilla finally shows up. And this is one of his greatest intros. He pops up, the lights are dark, the studio lights turn on, and he shows up. And then the Ifukube theme starts playing, and it's glorious.
Oh, it's perfect.
Also, this is where we get our first instance of the dolly shots used in this film that, like, overlook the city. And oh my God. Oh, I love these shots. This is where I fell in love with dolly shots. The lighting is beautiful. These sets are so well done. The dolly shots just are so luscious. I love these shots. I love everything about this.
Right.
This is where I learned how to love cinema. This film is the birth of my appreciation of cinema. I love it. I absolutely love it. I adore it.
Yeah, we know. We know that.
This is peak cinema. I'm just going to say it right now.
I was waiting for you to say that.
This is the definition of peak cinema. And you have to give me credit. I said it when we're over halfway done.
I was waiting for you to. I've been waiting for you to say it.
I love this film. I love it. And speaking of which, during this whole sequence, so Katsura gets caught, she gets shot, she falls into the water. They send Titanosaurus off. Godzilla doesn't run after him. He literally lets him run. Right.
He's just confused.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, the suit looks amazing. This is the best this suit has looked. The Godzilla suit's perfect. This is one of my favorite designs as well. One of my favorite scores, favorite cinematography, favorite lighting, favorite moments in the franchise. One of my favorite suits.
Just like this film.
Really? You think I might like this film?
Just a little.
You know, I will say this. I came to the conclusion today that my significant other, when I have one, she has to absolutely, like, if she's going to watch a Godzilla film, I mean, that's, like, obviously you're going to have to watch Godzilla. Like, you have to, right? That's just going to be one of those things you're going to have to do with me. If she's not willing to watch all the Godzilla films, which I'm not against, like, if they don't want to watch 40 movies, I don't blame them. It's 40 movies.
Mm-hmm.
This is still one of the requirements. You have to watch. Like, this is one of those, like, this is going to be their first film. Like, it's just so good. It's so good.
Well, following this brief scuffle, rather than really a battle, we go back to, we get a little bit of Ichinose and some of our cast members discussing their suspicions on Katsura before transitioning to the operation on her body by the aliens.
Yeah, and so following this is where we get the introduction to Mifune learning that Katsura is now the device, the controlling device for Mechagodzilla, which I've already waxed philosophical on that whole aspect, so I don't really have much more to say on that one. But we do get more back and forth with the whole supersonic wave machine and Katsura and all that intercut while Mifune has his breakdown.
Yeah, during which we get a brief appearance from Kenji Sahara as well.
Yeah, yep. His little cameo in this film, which is his last until, I think, King Ghidorah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was in this. I completely forgot.
He makes it's just like how in Mechagodzilla he makes this brief cameo, right?
Yeah. I mean, he showed up earlier in the film, and I thought it looked like Sahara, but I didn't. But there's no close up of him, so I'm like, looks kind of similar. But they'd highlight him if it was him,
right?
And then they have this scene with him, and I'm like, oh, it is him.
Now, here's the funny thing: all of this is occurring at the 55-minute mark, so there's literally less than 30 minutes left of this film. Godzilla's shown up once for about 2 minutes. Mechagodzilla's only shown up in the hangar. Titanosaurus has shown up 3 times.
Right.
And even then, Titanosaurus's appearances haven't been longer than like 3 minutes each. So he might have like 7 minutes of screen time, right?
Right. I mean, remember, monster screen time doesn't matter.
Thank you. This film is the perfect example of why the argument for more monster screen time is a pointless argument.
I mean, the thing is, this film is also so short where it's like having extensive screen time doesn't really matter. I mean, like 3 minutes of like short scenes with Titanosaurus being like less than 3 minutes each. That doesn't sound like a lot, but in like by this point, we're like 40, 50 minutes in or so. Like that's a good chunk of the movie. That'd be more than a tenth of a movie if they're like 3 or so minutes long.
Right. Now, with that being said, one thing we haven't brought up yet is Ichinose does get captured by the aliens. And then he gets thrown into the basement watching the plans of the aliens and Dr. Mifune unfold. which is a little too much like 74, I would say.
Yeah, and it also raises a question: why is this the only time the aliens try capturing someone and not shooting at them? They were
I never thought about that.
They were perfectly fine with killing Ichinose before. I'm pretty sure it's most of them are the same aliens that were going to shoot him before.
Mm-hmm.
But this time they just tie him in some ropes.
Right, and he's just kind of.
I can let it slide to let the story happen and be interesting, but it is still like, yeah, why'd they do that?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense.
Now, after all this, we do get Mechagodzilla launching at about the 70 or 57 minute mark.
Mm-hmm.
And so following this, we also get the destruction of the base. So they blow up their base and they launch. And all of this comes down to the 1 hour and roughly 1 minute mark where the actual climax of the movie begins. The climax of this movie is about 22 minutes long. And in that time frame, they have to bring Godzilla back. Godzilla has to beat Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus. They have to tie up Ichinose's story, Katsura's story, Mifone's story, and the alien story. All in 22 minutes.
Right.
That is a lot to do.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the sequences here in Tokyo where Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus obliterate city blocks. Oh, this is like peak destruction sequences in a Godzilla movie. The pyrotechnics are
the best.
Amazing. The compositing and like the animations for Mechagodzilla's beams are beautiful. The miniatures are so well done. The cinematography is amazing.
Right.
And I love how they're like, oh, where's Godzilla? And then 2 minutes later, Godzilla's here. Like, they know. I love the fact that they have the characters bring up Godzilla and then he shows up. I think that's a really fun way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of corny. Oh, where's Godzilla? Godzilla! But, you know, I think it's funny. I think it's funny and I think it works.
I could do without the bit with the kids. I think it's superfluous, but it's like, it's completely whatever to me, that bit.
Right. That was definitely a scene that was done just to get child audiences cheering. Yeah. Like, that is 100% a theater clapping moment. Oh no, the kids are about to get stomped over. Godzilla, boom, appears out of nowhere. Woo! Like, that's 100% what that's supposed to be.
Right, yeah.
And then it's and bear in mind, this is at about the 1 hour and 6 or 7 minute mark. So there's like 15 minutes left of this movie. And Godzilla's here for the rest of it.
Yeah.
We get some great fight sequences between Godzilla and Titanosaurus and Godzilla and Mechagodzilla. Godzilla gets beaten up in this film.
Oh, yeah. we get two absolutely gorgeous dolly shots that I know you love.
I love these dolly shots. I love the crane shots. I love the wide. This film is like, they use the wide angle so beautifully. This was actually the last Godzilla film shot in 2.40.1 aspect ratio. I love these widescreen. It's so good. It's so cinematic. This film is so cinematic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even the way Godzilla appears out of nowhere, it's funny, it's kind of kooky, yes, but it's so cinematic. I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it so much.
No, this is a great fight in spite of like some teleportation and some like a handful of like awkward or goofy moments. They don't take away from it for me, but I can see where others would complain.
Yeah, so
those moments.
Titanosaurus gets hit with the sonar thing that like they can use to like hit Titanosaurus with supersonic waves. So he kind of goes off in his own area, and Mechagodzilla's just kind of staring. And we do get the funny moment where Godzilla comes bursting out of the dirt and like brushes himself off before running and charging. But
Right.
it also is the introduction to the most entertaining scene in the Shōwa era. And that is this Godzilla charge as Mechagodzilla's pummeling him with bullets and beams and fire. The suit eventually catches on fire at one point. I love this charge. This charge is like the height of the film.
I mean, it's probably the most insane just bit of pyrotechnics in the series. Like,
yes,
this stunt is insane.
Like this single-handedly is Teruyoshi Nakano. And the fact that
like you're legitimately scared for the suit actor just watching this.
Absolutely.
The whole back catches on fire.
It's great. I love it. I love it.
They truly don't make movies like they used to.
No. And when Godzilla finally gets to Mechagodzilla, the way he just starts wailing on him.
When he just starts pummeling him, it's like a wave of attacks. Oh, that's one of the best shots in the franchise. I love that.
And then he like busts open Mechagodzilla's head, and then we get, the whole.
This is the fighting spirit that Gigan should have been showing.
Mm-hmm.
When Godzilla gets his second win in that movie, he should be fighting like this. He needed that energy in that fight.
See, it's really funny. This film is kind of a slow burn, right? Like the final act starts with 22 minutes left in the film, it's a very somber film. It's not very exciting, but when you get to those exciting moments, it's like, oh my God, what am I watching? This is like peak excitement. This is so good. It's so well done. And
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it's like the perfect balance of giving you exactly what you want, but also leaving you wanting more, but not in a way where you're not satisfied.
Correct.
Like it leaves you wanting, like you've gotten everything you want, but you couldn't you'd be happy to have more.
Mm-hmm.
It is that perfect zone.
Yes, I agree. And like this film encapsulates, like you have the dinosaur monster, the robot monster, Godzilla, aliens, mad scientists, love stories, fictional weapons, destruction sequences, military attacking, stock footage. You have everything from the Godzilla franchise in here. It is the culmination of all 21 years of Godzilla films.
Only thing you're missing is some reporters.
Pretty much, yeah, because you do get scientists too, yeah. This film is a love letter without trying to be a love letter. This film is just doing what it knows it has to do, and it does it really well. It's showing that they've learned from 21 years of Godzilla films, and this is, even though it wasn't planned to be the grand send-off, this is the grand send-off of this franchise. And then we get the human...
That new blood in the writing department just does so much.
It does so much. She saved Godzilla.
Unfortunately, not at the box office.
Clearly. We'll talk about that after. Speaking of being saved, Interpol eventually finds Mifone's house. They break in. Mifone gets shot and dies. The aliens run. Katsura gets injured. This is where we get such a depressing ending for Katsura and our main character Ichinose, where she ends up killing herself to destroy the Mechagodzilla device. Which is really sad because, like, you want them to get together. Like, they finally are together and they're able to have, like, this intimate moment. And it's gone because she knows if she stays alive, the Mechagodzilla controller will stay alive. Also, we never established, they learned from their mistakes. Mechagodzilla has a second head. I love that twist. That's a really good twist.
It's great.
And so from here, we get, Katsura kills herself. And then, so there's like 3 minutes left of the film. Katsura kills herself. Godzilla destroys Mechagodzilla. Godzilla kills Titanosaurus or just mortally wounds him, whatever. And then he destroys the alien invasion force, all in about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
The deaths in this final few moments is crazy. Like high octane deaths. That's what's going on here. Godzilla's not letting any of them go.
No, he's just straight on those aliens.
Oh, and I love how he sees them and just pummel, boom, atomic breath, gone, goodbye. Godzilla's had enough, and
right,
it's hilarious.
After gloating to the humans about his escape.
Mm-hmm. God, and I again, all of our supporting characters get to celebrate the win while our main characters are, mourning. Our main character is mourning the loss of who he loved. And I love the fact that the characters that were off watching from a boardroom or in the sky or from the trees, they get to celebrate, right? They're the characters that we're accustomed to. But then we see that our main characters who are directly impacted by the story and whatnot do not get that happy ending. I think that's really cool.
We did kind of touch upon this, but I'm also going to specifically highlight how much I appreciate the fact that the climax is not just humans standing on a hill watching Godzilla fight the monsters. I really appreciate that.
Right, and the fact that Interpol ends up showing up and having a gun battle with the aliens, I think also really helps. It adds to the stakes. It adds a little bit of oh no, what's going to happen here kind of to it.
Right. I mean, the previous film was kind of starting to, take a step towards fixing the issue, but it still has half the cast just standing on a hill watching the final fight, as the other cast maybe dies. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always appreciate having our characters get involved in the monster fight too, with Katsuo's sacrifice.
Right, and the fact that she's directly involved adds more stakes to that too.
Right.
I just love it. And the final minute of this movie is also just so beautiful. I love Ifukube's piece of music here. It's just called Ending. I love it. I love this shot. I know people are like, "Oh, it's the promo suit, ew," but I love this shot. I love Godzilla roaring off into the distance and walking into the sunset. This is just such a nice moment.
Yeah,
it's just there's something about it that forever will be with me, right? It's to end the series. You have to have Godzilla going off into the sunset. And Final Wars did that too, right? That's how Final Wars did it. And probably because of this film, if I had to be honest. Kitamura loved the 70s films. But no, that's just something that it's just when you're ending a franchise for Godzilla, when you're ending a series, that is the way to do it.
Mm. And it's so funny that it wasn't even really intentional.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And Godzilla walks off into the sea, and we get our end title card, and that's
Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Man, what a! I honestly, I forgot just how brisk of a watch this is. This is such an easy film to sit through.
Oh yeah,
I love it. I love this film.
I think it gets better and better, the older I get, and the more I've seen it.
Now. Where do we want to go from here? Do we want to hit any points we didn't hit?
I mean, you've hit basically all my points and more, which is about what I expected.
Fair enough. Now, the film did use props from Prophecies of Nostradamus. It used some miniature buildings. As established, this film was released March 15th, 1975. It was the last Godzilla film made for the Toho Champion Festival. It was shown along with Shin Henkiniden, Part 1 duel at Horugukaku. It was also shown with A Gift from Agnes, Heidi Girl of the Alps, Children of the Mountains, episode 45, First Humans Gyatoruzu, Mamogyo, Mamoga, episode 1, part 2, and Saze-san, I'll Read the Farewell Speech, episode 76, part 1. Outside of that, it was released in the US by UPA and Bobcon Enterprises. The Bobcon Enterprises cut is awful. It cut out every bit of language and violence and gore, and it's a chopped up mess. The UPA version actually has an extended intro inaccurately explaining Godzilla's origins. That's a very interesting watch. The only cut to that is the breasts. Now, contrary to what you might think, the film... So first of all, I also want to establish that there was only one crew on this film. I don't know if I brought that up, but there was only one crew.
Yeah.
Okay.
This film... that was basically the whole deal with a lot of these 70s films, was it just...
Yes.
It was one crew, but the only difference being like drama director, effects director, really.
Mm-hmm. Now,
because that was just a system post-Subaraya.
Right. Now, as you established, this film did not do well. It had an audience count of 970,000, which was the worst in the series, beating Godzilla vs. Megalon, and it stayed the worst until Godzilla 2 City on the Edge of Battle in 2018.
Right. Although in saying that, according to an interview with Nakano, it may have done... there's no actual data that I could find, but it may have actually done pretty well in America during its theatrical release.
Yeah, I heard it did
Apparently that was kind of what influenced a lot of talks on bringing Godzilla back.
That makes sense because Henry G. Saperstein, the president of UPA, was also very big into pushing Godzilla, especially around 78 when Terror came out.
78, yeah.
Because it was because of him that the Marvel Comics happened, and the Shogun Warriors happened, and the Hanna-Barbera series happened, and Terror of Mechagodzilla got its release, and Bobcon Enterprise re-released it, through UPA, and then we had all of that stuff, and then eventually that led to them looking into developing a Godzilla film, and then eventually Toho did 84.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the big thing that caused the death of Godzilla was not necessarily the numbers as much as it was Toho had started working with Disney, and the influx of foreign films started increasing, and those were what was taking over
particularly
the
in this year, I believe 1975 I think was a very big year for that, where they were actively overtaking the Japanese domestic films.
Right. And it's also important to note, so following this film, the next science fiction film that Toho would do was The War in Space from 1977. And we've covered that film, but just to throw this out there, the whole reason that film was made was to mark it off of Star Wars, which was, get this, the highest grossing film in the Japanese box office in 1977 when it came out.
Makes sense.
So following this, Toho's kind of idea was to just push to bank off of other things, right? Following this, I think the next one technically would be Sayonara Jupiter in 1984. And then after that was The Return of Godzilla, where they tried to bring back the effects films, and it didn't do too well, and it took 5 more years for them to do Gunhead and Biollante, which didn't do well. And then they went back to the drawing board, and that's where they got King Ghidorah, which didn't do well. And then they did Mothra, which did exceptionally well. And then Mechagodzilla and da-da-da-da-da. We'll cover those in the future. So this is the last hurrah of the pre-Hollywood Toho-influenced films. So this just marks the end of a lot. I think we can go into our final thoughts if you're ready.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump ahead and then you can go after me. Terror of Mechagodzilla to me is the return of the golden age of the Shōwa era. I think this film hits all the marks of the golden age of the 1960s with a smaller budget, but it definitely does what Gigan and Mechagodzilla wanted to do but couldn't do. It has some amazing cinematography. It has the best in any Shōwa Godzilla film. And it's the breath of fresh air that the franchise really needed. It, like I said earlier, does feel kind of like a best of between Godzilla 54, Ghidorah the Threaded Monster, Invasion of Astro Monster, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. But it also still stands on its own. It just takes small points of those films and brings them into this film and makes it its own thing. And I love that. I think it does a great job. The music is so good. It's the grandiose return of Akira Ifukube, and he was greatly missed. Like I said, this film is clearly shot on a tight budget, but this film proves they did not need the huge budgets to make good Godzilla films. They just needed competent people directing and working on these films. I think the fact that it takes over halfway into the narrative to actually bring Godzilla into the film proper proves just how good this script is and how good this film is. Godzilla has very little screen time in this film, and I think that also proves that you don't need a lot of screen time to have a good kaiju film. This film stands out in the 1970s Godzilla films and stands out in the franchise in general. And I think that says a lot for what this film had to go through. And I adore this film through and through.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Terror of Mechagodzilla. It is a wonderful crescendo. Hoorah, a final hoorah for the Shōwa era continuity of Godzilla, more so than any other film in the era could have really been, honestly. And what seals that is, as I stated before, the new blood in the writing department, that Yukiko Takayama. It's really nice to have not only a new perspective, but a female perspective, one that we had only seen otherwise in a script that really almost nothing in that makes it into the final film, an early script for Son of Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I can't name any other Godzilla movie that has a female writer on them. I don't think there is been. Yeah. I don't even know if maybe there's some TV shows. Maybe I couldn't name them. But yeah, for the... I kind of wish we'd have more Godzilla movies from a female perspective, just so that we could get more of it. Maybe Monarch, because there's at least some female directors on Monarch,
right?
So there might be female writers on that.
See, my thing is, you know how Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was like the final hurrah for the B team?
Mm-hmm.
Terror of Mechagodzilla 100% is the final hurrah for the A team.
It is quite literally the final hurrah for Honda.
Mm-hmm. This would be his last film he would direct. After this, he would just be an assistant director on Kurosawa films. I love this film. I love it.
One hell of an end to your career, I must say.
This is an example of where Honda had... I think he knew he had one more film left in him. And part of me wonders if he did all he could. Well, he did say after this that he wanted to continue doing special effects films. But I think he knew that this was it. I think you can tell that this film, that Terror of Mechagodzilla, has that direness to it. Like, this is it.
It's strange because I feel that, but maybe I almost feel like that's just something that's come through the film over the years, because of the legacy it has of being that lost Shōwa film.
And that's a whole nother thing, is like, this is it. Right? Like, this is the end of the Shōwa era.
This is the end of a style that the series can never go back to.
Right. And even, like, okay, so you and I cover more than just Godzilla, more than just Kaiju, more than just, that. This, like, for me and you, I don't know how many of the non-Godzilla or Gamera or Toho Shōwa Kaiju films you've seen, But for me, like, I recently watched, not recently, this was months ago, I watched Legend of Dinosaurs Monster Birds from 1977. It's a Toei kaiju film. When I watched that, I realized, oh my God, I'm almost out of Shōwa kaiju films. Now, like, I have Daigoro versus Goliath, and I have plenty of TV shows and whatnot. But there's something about realizing that you've almost watched all of it.
Bro, I'm scared to run out of Honda Toku movies that I haven't seen. I've got like 3 left that I haven't.
I think
3
I
or
have
4
one
left that I haven't seen.
I think I have one, and that's Gorath.
That terrifies me. Have you seen Half Human?
Oh, I haven't. He did he direct Half Human?
Yeah, he directed Half Human.
Oh, Half Human and Gorath, then I think are the only 2 I haven't seen. He also did Human Vapor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. So those are the 3 I haven't seen.
Right.
It's scary because and this is more of a once you get to this point, right? This is like kind of a seasoned watcher of Kaiju and Tokusatsu. It mortifies me thinking that like I'm running out. Like there's only a handful more first times for this era, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And like for me, that's been something since childhood. Like I've had first times of Showa era Kaiju Tokusatsu since my childhood. I'm running low on that. And one day I will run out. And that is genuinely horrifying. Genuinely. It's one of those things where like you don't think about it because all you want is you want to see all of it, right? You want to watch all of it. But eventually...
Right. But there's so many where it's like it always feels like there's more. I mean, there still is more, but it's scary how little there is left.
Right. I have a list of every 1960s kaiju film produced in Japan or 60s kaiju product, like TV show or movie. I've seen almost all of it.
Mm.
I'm horrified. The moment I run out of that, I don't know what I'm going to do. I genuinely, like, there is so little left for me. When I do run out, I'm, like, that's an end of my era, right? I've seen it all. And it's not like it'll come back because that time period is over. That will never come back. What is out is what is out. You cannot go back.
Right.
And... you know, to a certain extent, it's like I would give anything to be able to go back and see Terror of Mechagodzilla for the first time again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Anything to go back see all of these films for the first time again, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of them.
The Megalon. Well, with that, Rex, do you want me to jump in and cast and crew, and then we'll do our rankings and wrap things up?
Yeah.
Okay. Our cast includes Katsuhiko Sasaki, who played Akira Ichinose, was in Daitsujin 17, Godzilla vs. Megalon, Godzilla vs. Biollante, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Evil of Dracula, Prophecies of Nostradamus, Godzilla, the Japanese voice actor, Godzilla 2014, he was a Japanese voice actor, Godzilla King of the Monsters, he was a Japanese voice actor, Tomoko Ai played Katsura Mifune, who played in Ultraman Leo, Super Sentai Go Ranger, and the upcoming film Kaiju Island of Fire. Akihito Hirata played Dr. Mifune, who was in Godzilla, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Threaded Monster, Ibra, Horror of the Deep, Son of Godzilla, Rodan the Mysterians, the H-Man, the Secret of the Telesian, Varan the Unbelievable, The Three Treasures, Latitude Zero, Prophecies of Nostradamus, The War in Space, Sayonara Jupiter, Revive Ultraman, Ultraman 1967, Rainbow Man, Daitsujin 17, Ultra Q, Ultraman, Mighty Jack, and Fireman. Goro Mutsumi, who played Mughal, was in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Espy, The War in Space, Ninja Corpse Gecko, Ambassador Magma, Mighty Jack, Japanese Ghost Story Theater, Fireman, Ultraman 80, Space Sheriff Shirvan, Cybercop. Masaki Daimon returns. He plays Kusagari. He was in Return of Ultraman, Ultraman 80, Cybercop, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Katsumasa Uchida played Jiro. Murakoshi was in Espy. Yasuko Agawa played Yuri Yamamoto, who was in Evil of Dracula, Prophecies of Nostradamus, Japan Sings the TV show, Zone Fighter, and Ultraman Leo. Toru Ibuki played Tutsuda, who was in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of Astro Monster, Ibra, Horror of the Deep, Destroy All Monsters, King Kong Escapes, and Ultra Q. For your crew, and for most of these people, actually all of them, I'm not going to list off credits because the only one who is new here does not have any other Tokusatsu credits to her name. The other 4 I have listed off their long lists many times before. Tomiyuki Tanaka was your producer. Kira Ifukube was your composer. Yukiko Takayama was your screenwriter. Teruyoshi Nakano was your special effects director. And Ishiro Honda was the director. And that's your cast and crew. Now, Rex, we have just one last thing left. This is our last time ranking the Shōwa era Godzilla films.
Shall you do the honors to begin?
Well, we're going to start at number 17, so bear in mind, we're going to be ranking all 15 Shōwa films, plus Godzilla -1 and Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. So, at number 17, I have Godzilla Raids Again.
I have Godzilla vs. Gigan.
At number 16, I have Godzilla Kong: The New Empire.
I have Raids Again.
Number 15, I have Mothra vs. Godzilla.
New Empire's up here for me.
Number 14 is Godzilla vs. Gigan.
I'm Destroying All Monsters at number 14.
That's my number 13.
Well, at 13, I'm fighting Megalon on the Twin Towers. What?
I was not expecting that statement. Well, Megalon is on mine at number 12.
All Monsters attacking me at number 12.
My number 11 is Ibra, Horror of the Deep.
Mine's a battle against Mechagodzilla. Or versus Mechagodzilla, I should say.
I was confused for a second. I was like, against Mechagodzilla. Wait a minute. So now we're into our top 10. My number 10 so far is Son of Godzilla.
I've got a Horror of the Deep at my number 10.
My number 9 is All Monsters Attack.
Raising the Son of Godzilla at number 9 for me.
My number 8 is Godzilla vs. Hedorah.
King Kong and Godzilla fighting at my number 8.
That's my number 7.
I've got a Mothra fighting Godzilla at my number 7.
Oh, God. Can't stand that ranking. My number 6... you know what I mean. My number 6 is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla.
I've got at number 6 an Invasion of Astro Monster.
That's my number 5.
At number 5, I have The Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Oh, that's way too low.
Yeah,
okay,
but
so
anywhere below number 1 is way too low for you.
My number 4 is Godzilla 54.
I got Godzilla vs. Hedorah.
So, now we're going to stop. I want you to establish why you put Terror below Hedorah and above Mothra. Let's hear your reasoning for your rankings.
Well, Terror of Mechagodzilla is a bit of a better movie than Mothra vs. I think Mothra vs. kind of starts to not quite fall apart, but loses itself a bit in the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Terror of Mechagodzilla, it's really good. It's really good. I really like it. I love the stuff of Katsura, but I think Hedorah is just such an interesting film to watch. Just the whole direction of it is so weird and bizarre, and it's just such an interesting film to analyze as well, thematically. Again, I feel, like I said in that episode, I feel like there's still more going. I felt like there was more going on in that film than what we even touched upon in some regards.
That's fair.
But all of this top 5, top 6 is great.
Yeah, I would agree. So, I've established my number 4. You said yours was Hedorah, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, top 3. Our top 3 answers on the board. My
Well, we
number
already know
3.
these ones.
My number 3 is Godzilla -1.
I have a very fitting three-headed dragon at number 3.
Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is my number 2. You said Three-Headed Dragon, and it threw me through a loop on the title.
Wait, Ghidorah's your number 2. Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot there.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Ghidorah has
Tripped me up.
Ghidorah has
Tripped me
been
up.
dethroned. Ghidorah is no longer number 1.
I'm so used to hearing it at number 1 that I just forgot. At number 2, I've got 54.
And my number 1 is the greatest film of all time. The film that birthed me as a person and who I am now. The film that has made me who I am. The film that has made me spend over thousands of dollars on stuff that I probably don't need. Has ruined my life for what it could have been and has put me on the trajectory of where I am now. The film that has influenced me more than anything else in the world. Terror of Mechagodzilla.
And I have my own life-changing film, Godzilla -1.
It's weird to think that Godzilla -1 is your equivalent to me. And
Well, Final Wars is my equivalent, but -1
That's
is
fair.
also just was life-changing in a different way.
That's fair. We've done it. It took us 5 years, but we have covered all 15 Shōwa Godzilla movies.
Now, how long will it take to cover the rest?
Probably another 5 years.
Oh boy.
It'll be almost 2030, and like we'll have the next, like we'll have Heisei and Millennium covered, and it'll be like, well, we still have, let's see, 2014, King of the Monsters, GVK, and the anime trilogy.
Cut to 2030 and we start reviewing Chibi Godzilla episodes. Hey, I can't wait for that.
Yeah. Well, Rex, I think we have just one last thing here to end our Godzilla month. And almost, we're not done for the year. We still have a handful of episodes coming this year, but we are on our way out. So I think we just have one last thing to do to wrap up the Shōwa era of Godzilla, Godzilla month, and the beginning of the ending of our 2024 year. And I just have something to tell you, Rex.
And what is that?
Hello, I'm Elijah, and I have a Kaiju and Tokusatsu problem, if you couldn't tell by how I've talked about this movie specifically. Joking aside, I am Elijah Thomas. I am a writer. I've written for GodzillaMovies.com, Kaiju Ramen Magazine, and Kaiju United, of which I'm the Chief Innovative Officer for. My writing has also been featured in the book Giant Bug Cinema, a Monster Kid's Guide from Bear Manor Media, where I wrote about Ghidorah the Threaded Monster. I've also been given the privilege to work with my good friends at Giant Monster BS on their most recent season, Season 2 of their podcast, where they are covering indie kaiju films. Outside of writing and podcasting, I also served as a consultant on the upcoming Titanic Creations officially licensed Yonguri articulated figure. Go to titanicCreations.com/Yonguri to order yours today. I've also had the privilege to produce bonus features for SRS Cinema. I've worked on Yuzo, The Biggest Battle in Tokyo, Liverleaf, War of the Ninja Monsters, Jiren vs. Gora, Sharkdemic, and I'm working on the upcoming release of Hoshi 35. You can order all of these Blu-rays on srscinema.com. I'm also a filmmaker and YouTuber. You can check out my stuff on my YouTube channel, ET13 Productions, where you can see some of my short films and my old YouTube videos, along with a playlist that features all of my appearances on YouTube. I do plan on getting some new videos out soon. I've already posted a handful of my short films, such as Bio Project and The Invisible Teacher and SOS Seek Shelter. You can also check out my action figure photography on my Instagram at ET13_productions and my X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Thanks, Danny, at the same handle. Now, Rex, where can people find you at?
Well, dear listeners, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, and on Instagram, Rex_Xeno. And if you want to check out some of my writing, go take a look at the Tokusatsu Network.
And as for the podcast, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't actually, that's a lie. I use a MacBook to do this podcast. You can rate us on Spotify. To stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, head over to www.kaijuconversation.com to find all of our episodes, social media, news, and updates.
Currently, we are also holding a vote for the 2024 Kaiju Convies, our end-of-year celebration where you, dear listeners, can vote on your favorite films, actors, kaiju, and more, as seen in this year on Kaiju Conversation. The link can be found in the description down below.
Follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you. You can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually, we're gonna have original artwork on there, but until then, you can sport our awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with us, check out our Discord server full of others that have similar interests to you. Most recently, in our Discord server, there was a conversation about the new Garo film. So there's been some excitement about the new Garo film. It's a great community full of great people. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusive to the channel, like bloopers for episodes or minisodes talking about news or other subjects. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer Jared Krzyzewski on the channel, and I definitely butchered his name. So sorry about that. And a huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and all the other content we upload. His links can be found in the description below. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DiManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website, GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Grattan Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So thank you guys so much for listening. Shōwa Godzilla movies done. Godzilla Month 2024 done. And we are almost out for this year. It's been a great year. Thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt. There's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. And not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.